All right, so we're working. So, like I said, we're working on the final form plush toy model, and one of the requirements is you need to have accessories, some kind of accessory, whatever you please. Chainsaw, lightsaber, adorable hat. Well, and that's what we're going to work on tonight. I want to show you how to make a cowboy hat, or in this case, just a simple hat, that kind of thing, using the form workspace. So, hopping over to Fusion. So it's working on little cowboy hat for little rubber ducky, as well as just a rough, tough cattle driving neckerchief there as well. And these are both created with the form tools specifically. I also want to show how to make a cloth simulation. While obviously this is not anything that like a Blender program would be able to achieve, but a simple cloth simulation, or at least like an undulating flat surface form with like close enough folds can be achieved with the Loft tool within the Form workspace. So let's start with a little hat for the little rubber duck. So it does help to have some reference photos, that sort of thing, as well as something to start from on top of, meaning that if you were making a hat for your plush toy, I definitely recommend have the plush toy made. That way you have the sizes more correct. But at the same time, if it's just a matter of scale and proportion, just scale up the model appropriately. Remember, for this model, scale is mostly irrelevant. It's all about proportions. Um, so certainly what you can do if you would like is import some canvases. So I have these prepped. Ideally, let's see, I was trying to see if that's front view. There we go. Bring in a canvas. Let's hide all the bodies. Where is it? Is it extra super teeny tiny? This object you're, oh, I turned off the canvases. Oh, no, it's actually, in point of fact, rather giant. Okay, cool. So we'll deal with the proportions in a moment. Let's just kind of bump that over just a teeny bit. Right about there in the middle. And we'll move it into position in a moment. All right, great. Bring in the other one. Let's hide those duck canvases and bring in from the side the side view. There we go. Onto the side. Luckily, these are both from the same model, so should be pretty darn close. And again, the whole point of a lot of this is simply getting it close enough. By no means do you have to actually have this in a set proportion or anything like that. But I'll bring up the body that I had worked on before. Let's hide some stuff. Don't need all of those. We'll leave the duck and hat and such in place. So cool. Duck's there. Let's move my canvases in place. And first, just want to edit and move. Let's drag that up and up and up. All right. And then the same for the side view hat. Remember, trying to align two canvases gets a little bit tricky. It's best to try to actually do this in a 3/4 view, not necessarily perspective, but more of a 3/4 view. So you can try to get them about the same height, but now obviously these are the wrong, these have not been calibrated into scale yet. So how big do I want to make this? Front view, right click, calibrate. All right, how tall? There to there. I don't know, that's 9 millimeters. I don't know, let's say 25. Probably make it a little bit larger because that's still kind of tiny and adorable. Let's calibrate again. That was to 25. Let's make it 50. Double it up. That seems roughly right-ish. Great. So let me just move this into position. Roughly about there. And again, you could always have this floating somewhere above, something like that. Does not matter. Okay, cool. At least now I have a set size and I can calibrate my other one into position. All right. Right click, calibrate, top to bottom. We had it at 50. Let's see if that's pretty close. That looks gigantic. So this, like I said, is going to be just a little bit tricky trying to get these aligned. So we'll see how this goes. So I'm just doing some basic modeling for accessories and such. So like I said, this takes a little bit of finagling. So Yeah, we're going to call that good enough, and I can just work from there. Okay, close enough is close enough in this case. So, like I said, working with this, working with making a hat. Obviously, the one I did before was, well, you make your own style hat. I was just kind of playing around. Let's see how close I can get to the actual model. All right, more or less calibrated, more or less in place, and I'll just build it there and then move the thing into position later. So, what do I start with? Opening the form workspace. You might think start with a flat plane and then like extrude, pull it up, stuff like that. Yes, no, no, yes. In this case, if it's going to be round, start with something round. And in this case, a cylinder works probably the best. If you can find it, I'm having difficulty seeing my start plane. There we are. Working from above. If I want my hat to start more or less at the duck head, great. I do want to make sure I'm working on the plane, in this case, or axis, in this case, the y axis. Make it about yay big, super duper. That's sort of kind of in place. Now, simplify. Do not let this be too complex right from the get-go. Height faces, let's start at 2 and see where that goes. Now, side to side, as far as diameter faces, let me turn off the canvases so you can see what I'm talking about. I want to keep this a little more complex because if I go much more simplified, it's going to start to flatten out the round. Meaning it's going to take those 8 sides. If I shrink it down too much to like 4, it's actually going to start to turn a bit more rectangular. So I'm going to leave it at 8 for there. Also going to apply symmetry. With symmetry, green line right straight up in the middle. So left and right are going to be the same. Great. Okay. So from here, it's a standard stuff. Let's start moving stuff into place, all that. First, I want to move this up just so it's kind of in place where I can work from, as in the top of the head. Okay, cool. That'll work. From here, it's going to be the 4-minute fun. So obviously I can select from the top, drag up, start to pull that upward. I'm just pulling straight up and down. The bottom here is going to be a lot easier to deal with if I now go ahead and add another layer. So probably should have added maybe instead of 2 vertical faces, maybe 3, but no problem. Oops, I didn't want to cancel. I wanted to complete. Wrong button. There we go. So simply add an edge, double click to get all the way around. Sure, that works about there. The reason I'm doing that, I go to edit form again, select by edge, double click to grab the bottom rung, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to extrude that bottom round. So press and hold Alt, mouse over the uniform scale, scale outward, and extrudes, and you instantly start getting a hat out of that. All comes down to you need the closer together edge lines to control the curvature there, and then start with the right shape. Bam! I instantly have like a stovepipe hat. And again, close enough is going to be close enough. Now for this model, let's go ahead and hide the canvases a little bit, or for the moment. For this model, I definitely want to cap the top. So let's go to fill hole. Oops, deselect there. Otherwise, I was going to try to fill the bottom hole there. Fill hole for the top. Double click. Oops, it didn't quite select fill hole. There we are. Cycle through your options. Reduce star doesn't look good. Fill star, kind of, sort of, but I actually want some lines across the top. So collapse, yeah, that's more something I can work with because I've got a center point there and such. Weld center vertices, sure, might as well. Keep creases if you want it to be a flat top hat. Otherwise, no. Hit OK. All right. Back to edit form again. So much of this, like has been before, is simply going to be playing with getting your design how you want it to be. So something like this, working from edges, or rather working from vertices, let's grab like the very outside ones. I just want to grab these outer rungs. It's mirrored, so it's going to grab the ones on the left, but I do not, in this case, I do not want the front and back. I just want the sides. So with that, starting to go upwards. So that effect. Now you might find that you might need to work this in reverse, starting from the top down. Doesn't matter. This is all going to be just playing around. From the top, center, how can I get what I want here? Well, let's grab all of those vertices. I'll use the scale tool to shrink them inward, but it's not affecting the length. Perfect. From the center, now, if in order for me to get that dip down, I'm going to need to add some more edges to add some complexity, enough for me to work from. Oops, it hid my, or it undid my scale there, so that's all right. Again, it looks like I should scale it this way a touch too. And that kind of took those too far. Great. Okay. So I need to add some complexity up there too. All right. Let's hit OK. Insert edge. Oh, let's see. Kind of looks more like what I need is an edge up top here. Now, it is not letting me insert edge much from there, and it's adding some odd complexity there that I don't want. So instead, I'll have to insert edge from the outside. Let's go toward the top. This will start letting me break it up from up top. Great. Okay. Because all I'm doing here, now when I go back, select from the center, drag downward, that allows me to have a bit more control from those. All right. If I want to have the indents, now this gets a little bit more difficult to grab everything because I'm trying to get all of the edges of the second rung here, not the very top to the second one. I'm going to use free transform to drag that inward. Probably should have worked this a little bit differently. That's not a problem because I ended up just shrinking by doing that the whole top. All right, no big deal. So let me grab all of this. And in this case, what I'll do is I'll use the scale tool to drag that back out, back up to the top. Again, this is going to be just a little bit of playing around. What I probably actually need is one more edge here because everything is shrinking and growing more than I want. So if that's the case, if it's dragging everything with it, well, that probably means, yep, add another rung. Let's go down here. 0.5. Nope. 0.5, not -5. Maybe 0.4. There we go. I'm trying to get something that'll help me match this edge right there. All right. Messes it up a little bit, but that's all right. Let's select by those vertices, drag it upwards, scale straight outward. Ooh, that's getting kind of weird. But I'm actually getting more or less kind of what I want. Now, obviously, I'm going to have to indent some of these as well. For that, maybe I'll try the soft modification. Click that on, select there. You can see the red. Let me hide the canvases. You can see a little more clearly. The red outline is showing the area of effect. I think I'm going to shrink that to 25. Sure, that looks better. Oops, I didn't mean to get out of that. And I'm just grabbing that one vertex there because what I'd like to do is pull that down and inward. There we go. Now, this is kind of going the wrong way now. So one of the things I'm finding is I'm not being able to get this valley as well as I'd like. So what I probably need to do, instead of working by vertex, let's switch to by face or by edges. Oh, double click there. No, but I do want all of these. Now, one quick issue, my soft modification still on. I do not want that large area of effect, but I do want to select these. Oops. Didn't mean to orbit. Sorry. I do want to select all of these edges because when I snap back to the front, by vertex, you don't always have the option to do this, is I can now rotate and I can kind of get that valley in a little bit more effectively. Now, when I scale outward, maybe not. Let's try dragging that outward. Getting a little bit closer. Good. Again, this does not have to be exact, so we'll kind of pause at this point, and just kind of let the top of the hat be what it's going to be. Okay, that's not bad. That's not great, but it's not bad. Obviously, if you move from the side, you can start to play a little bit more like here. So front should be a little bit downward a bit. I can actually rotate some of these vertices, pull that inward. I'm obviously not keeping to the front of to the actual scale of the side view of the hat as much because I'm trying to fit it to my duck. But I do want to add these dips. So in this case, let's grab this one vertex, drag that downward. Now double check. Ooh, that kind of got weird and big. So maybe instead of those, let's grab the center and the next available, drag that downward. Let's try rotating it. That's allowing me to get that little bit of a dip down. Excellent. Let's do over the front. From the left select, rotate, drag downward. Maybe I need a few more vertices, but be careful using a full select because it's going to select everything through. And what I accidentally just selected there were these two vertices in the center. I did not want that. I just wanted these outer ones. So sometimes you're going to have to go through and select the vertices individually. It's tedious, I know, but it's sometimes the only way to work at what you're trying to get out of this. So, there we go. Cool. All right. That looks somewhat hat-like. But one of the things I really want is this curl up, and how I got that curl up from the same with, oops, no, it won't let me look at the other one right now. How I got the curl in the sides of the hat is I needed to add an extra line to the outside, but I didn't do it all the way around. Let me hide the canvases. You can see a little more clearly. What I did is insert edge, but I only inserted an edge on the two sides, not all the way around the perimeter of the brim. So right about there, it's at 0.4. That's fine, close enough. It's going to add a little complexity, but not too much because I still want the front and back to be a little more smooth. All right, what that's going to let me do when I go back to edit form, let's go by edges. I can select now that one, and that one. Now I can rotate. Now it's going to flip everything, but you can see how it just started to curl inward like that. That's what I needed to have happen. Drag it back outward. Now I have my curly hat with the curled inward hat with the brim. You can kind of unfold a little bit if it's too much, but there we go. Nice. Still gonna sharpen this side up a little bit, like right there at the base of the hat. Let me hide the canvas again so you can see. Right here, I kind of like that to be a little bit sharper. So let's go in and add a crease to that line. Ooh, don't know if I like that at all. Maybe I'll turn that base line into a band. Yeah, we'll probably do something like that. Okay. All right, that's crease line, and yeah, that's not bad at all. Last step for this part is it is currently still only a surface thick, because if I go to finish form, awesome, no errors, but it is currently displaying as a surface. The gold inside, and on the project tree, it is the symbol of the orange semicircle here. So I need to go back in there, and let's simply add thickness to that. So thicken tool, select the hat. I want to use a soft edge so it doesn't look, well, the corners aren't sharp. And I don't know, 2 millimeter. We'll see how thick that gets. Too thick and it kind of starts turning a little chunky. I found that when doing like cloth style stuffs, anywhere between 1 and 2 millimeters tends to be a pretty good thickness. Anything thicker gets kind of chunky. But if you don't like that, obviously, Control Z, reapply thicken, and let's instead do 1 millimeter. Almost imperceptible, but it adds thickness to it. So now when I go to finish form, now it translates it to a proper body. So Cowboy hat 2. Alrighty. So a couple of the things we can do, we can play with this form. This works well, but if I want to add some extra features and details and such, things like I have the benefit of these edges and such, so I could again go back and use the pipe tool. Let's click that whole ring there. I don't want to cut, I want to join, and let's add, I don't know, 3 mil. Too much. 2 mil. 1. Really? It's only letting me do a 1 millimeter? That's weird. Sweep cannot change valid body. All right, fine. Probably because it's a creased edge. It's not, something is interfering. Not sure what and where, but there we are. But anyway, we should be able to use that tool, or if you don't like the pipe tool, let's leave that as a separate body. Fine. So instead, what I can do is I can hide that sweep body, and if you really want to, we can go back, say, like, if I wanted to make, something with an actual, like, band or something there, I could go back, let's do a sketch. Let's hide the duck, just because that's getting very complex. On the front plane, sure, sure, and I want to do a sketch based off of that edge. So, I don't know, let's do, like, a center rectangle. Oh, first I need to project. So let's project the body. Cool. Right there. So I just need that corner. All right. Let's do like a center point rectangle. Something, something, something. I don't know. 1 by 4. Cool. And I'm just going to round this over. Obviously, the 4 mm makes it way too tall, but whatever. We're going to proof of concept with this. And we'll say, sure, good enough. Constraints warning, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, whatever. Let's hit OK. Oh, because I got all my sketches hidden. So now I can, just like the pipe tool, where'd it go? Am I not right on the center line? Ah, crud. I'm not right on the center line. I should have brought this right up or drawn on the other side because the projection plane is not smack in the middle of my hat. Bummer. All right, tell you what, let's I'll just delete that sketch. All right, never mind. Let me do it from the side instead. That'll be easier to deal with. But that won't let me work properly. All right, fine. So then instead, what I need to do is do a section analysis so I can get a cross section. All right, so I'm just having to do way too much to get just to this little silly thing here. Where are my origin planes? Hello? Where the heck is my origin plane? Okay, now you're just messing with me. Fine, we'll just use that as a construction plane. That should be flat. Nope, not at all. Whatever. Okay. Good gravy. Come on. Why is my origin not coming up? Oh, always fun. No, cut plane should be directly on. Nope, my origin plane isn't coming up. All right, fine. We'll just put that right in half if it'll let me get smack in the middle. Well, that's just frustrating. Sorry, this is just for some whatever reason not showing up where I need it to. There we go. What the heck? All right, now it's coming up, but the section analysis is not working. So fine, let's just delete it. I don't know. Maybe we got a buggy thing tonight. Okay, there we go. That's what I was trying to get to, just so I have a cross section and do what I was trying to do right in the first place. All right. Edit that sketch, and I want to select by. Nope, not that plane. That plane. There we are. Okay, good gravy. Project, outline. Okay, should have the line that I'm trying to get to. Man, this is just really trying my patience now. There, it's all I need. Just that spot, just that point. Redo this. A little bit of a whatever. Sure. Literally it. Just trying to make something on that sketch line. Because what I wanted to do is use exactly what the pipe tool does. Let me hide my section analysis now. Is if I can use a sweep of the profile I just sketched, and I can use the path that I just used for the pipe tool, that will now swing around, and I can make, say, that become a band around it. There you go. So sorry, that was a very roundabout way of trying to just create a different part of the model. But now, obviously, unhide my duck and bring up the appearances. And let's see here. I was playing around. There are actually, if you really want, under fabric, there's even leather. So hot dang, leather hat with a little fabric strip. Now the body isn't showing. There we go. So hooray, it's got a funky cowboy hat. One other thing there is, what is this one? That is the weathered leather. See how the bitmap for it is just all over the place? If you don't want that, I can adjust this by right-clicking on the appearance block here, go to edit, and something like this, if I use the scale slider and just drag it downward, that will help. But because it's such a funky form, it seems to be getting just kind of all kind of messy. So, you try to get it as close as you can or make it look decent enough. Sometimes the rotation can help, but in this case, it is not at all helping. Roughness slider isn't doing anything. Reflectance, nothing. So, all right, close enough. Anyway, all right. Irritatingly roundabout way of, oops, just trying to toggle stuff. So I'm trying to hide some things just so it's not as complex. Okay. Roundabout way of giving him a little hat. Now, obviously, last step would be moving the thing into position. Remember, you do not have to join these together. The main body for your actual plush toy, yes, should be all joined together, but accessories, completely separate body. Ideally, actually, should be a separate component. Okay. And okay. Okay, that's cool. All right. Okay, so that is making a quick little hat and such. And I actually, as a model, I actually also was experimenting and did something similar to create a little neckerchief, which is a cylinder that I went through and just kept altering to get it to fit. So you know what? Give the little ducky the full cowboy duds. More power to you. All right. So the other one I wanted to show real quick is how you can kind of get a quick simulation of like a cloth. So if you wanted to give it like your model like a cape or something like that, pretty easy way to approximate that. Again, Fusion is not going to let you do a full cloth simulation with folds and all that. You can get close. Keep adding edges and such. You can get close, but you're not going to get all the way there. So let me start a new one just for this example. Let me save. Sample cloth drape. Close enough. All right. So what I'm going to do first is you have to have a pretty clear idea of kind of what you want out of it. Now for this, you could start with something close and then get there, meaning this could be modeled in the form workspace so you can totally still manipulate it after you do the initial work. So first, I'm going to do a profile sketch. So say I had like, a head and it's got to have a flowing cape. All right, cool. So start somewhere at the top. Cape usually would flow downward and then maybe it flows down and out. Okay. So we'll pretend like the head would be like of whatever would be up around here and something kind of body would be roundabout there. So that would mean cape flows somewhere around. You can, of course, drag these downward. There you go. Finish sketch. All right. Now what I need is I need to add what will become the profiles of kind of looking down. So pretend that if you've ever done a drawing of like a cloth, canvas, drapery, anything like that, you're going to have those little squiggly lines that will show like what the bottom of the edge looks like. Same with the top, maybe something in between. That's exactly what I'm going to do. So to achieve that, I need to make sure my sketches are on this path. So how do I do that? Easy. Construction plane, plane along a path. Select there, drag it to the front, start there. Okay, right click to repeat. Let's make a plane at the very bottom of the path, or you could do it numerically 1, because remember, starting point to end point, 0 to 1, meaning halfway would be 0.5. Okay, I like using one more at least. So something like about, I don't know, there-ish. Let's just for the sake of consistency, we'll say that's 0.25, not 0.25, 0.25, meaning a quarter of the way down. Okay, cool. All right. So now let's start sketching. Remember, my point is right there, happens to be right there. Obviously, this gets real screwy if you lose where you are, but it's going to automatically put the center point on, or the center point of the virtual plane is the end of your path, because that's just how that works. Because if I don't, my virtual plane is still floating right there, the standard one, but that one for the actual sketch is going to align with that construction plane. So by default, it's going to be there. If you can't quite see your planes, hide some of the other ones. We know we're working on plane 3. There we go. Okay. So where's my point? See, I've already lost it again. Right there, the center. Okay. So let's do a fit point spline, give it some curves. Drag these around. Sure. Good enough. Hit OK. Ooh, that did something funky. Oh, I think I accidentally had 3D sketch still functional. So let's go back into that. Yep. So if you accidentally make this screwy all over the place, double check your toolbox for the sketch palette. At the very bottom, it says 3D sketch. Uncheck that. I do not want that, because what it just did, instead of squiggly line, but on a flat plane, squiggly line and all over the place. I kind of need it to stay put. So I'm just going to delete that one, and I'll just redraw it because it doesn't really matter right now. All right, squiggly line, squiggly line. Doesn't have to stay put anywhere. Cool. You can always go back and edit. All right, finish sketch. Much better. See, that sketch is aligned on that plane. There we go. Now, realistically, it probably would be beneficial that this point is on that point, and I can always go back into my sketch and fix that. All right. Now let's work the starting point plane. This one can be simplified. So let's start a new sketch on that plane. I hate that it rotates like that. I don't know why it always does that. But let's make this kind of a little bit simple. I'm just going to start. I kind of just want like a U shape. Just a really simple one, like the idea that it's going to go around like a neck or something. Cool, simple, done. Okay. The in-between is going to be over here. So let's do another sketch on that third plane. All right, and let's let's say that this is going to be the midpoint. So do I want this to flow inward, outward, whatever? Doesn't have to be overly complex. In point of fact, you'd probably like this to be a little bit more simplified. All right, so see how I kind of made this in-between sketch, just that, an in-between of the starting point and where the end point's going to be? Perfect. Okay, let's hit OK. So now I can enter the form environment. So let's create form. And again, you could have created the sketches in the form environment. Doesn't matter. I just started with this. I'm going to go to create loft. Now, this is the same thing we've used before, but this is the form environment. So remember, loft, you have to select your profiles in order. So if I start at the top, it means to start top, middle, bottom. If I start at the bottom, bottom, middle, top. 1, 2, 3. And you can see instantly how it's going to start to create something. But I can also bring in this path that I originally used. So guide type, go to center line, select that pathway. Now my loft instantly snapped into position like that. So this is how you can very quickly start a close enough cloth simulation for this. Now, the more faces you have, the better it's going to fit your profile, especially if it's extra squiggly down here. Meaning that if I dial back the faces, look how much my line drifts away, or my loft drifts away from my original sketch line. So we'll keep the faces, at least the width faces, where it was at 8. The length faces, we could probably shrink up a little bit just to not just to keep it from overwhelming us entirely. Yeah, not terrible. Okay. Now you have a basic cloth-like shape that you can now freely edit with the edit form. So right back to where we were. Cool. Let's add by vertex, grab from the side, grab those. I'm going to drag that outward, something to that effect. Or better yet, let's grab those two. I can drag that down. And if I want to look at like the cape is up and over the shoulders or something, or whatever your critter may or may not have shoulders, rotate this, and I just inverted it. Now it's got more of like Superman cape style thing going. And you can, of course, use all the scale tools. You can shift this around. It is no longer bound by your original sketch lines. And that's the cool thing about creating this with the form tools rather than just the rather than the solid loft workspace we worked before. Plus, prior working with the solid loft workspace, it had to be a closed sketch. This can be simply a fit point spline singular line, or a series of them rather. I can of course go back in and add more shape or add more edges and such. If I want to add more fiddly bits to my cloth, I can start working that kind of thing. I can add up and down. These can be drug all around. However you want to modify, turn on the soft modification. Now it's going to drag it around even more. You get the idea. You start getting some pretty fun stuff with this. All right. However you want to mess with that, there you go. If you want to add more folds, this is where you could do things like creasing and such like that. If you need, you can add edges. Double click there. Sure, why not? Let's add there. And then I can come in with the crease tool and double click that one. Add a crease. Now, it didn't really do anything because it is currently just kind of in line, but if I went to modify form by edge, let's drag that one, and I could do something like, let's try the scale tool, shrinks in, but now let's kind of drag that inward a bit, and you can see how that's going to start creating a crease in there. Now, of course, be careful with this because I'm pretty sure I just created a very big problem for myself. Yep, that is definitely self-intersecting. So be very careful with that. You might do better simply creating any folds ahead of time in your original sketch, or just be a little bit softer with your modifications. So with that, maybe instead of using the scale tool, I could have just used this and drug the whole thing inward a little bit. That actually looks significantly better. So instead of using scale, I just did that. Same deal, maybe a double click out here. And again, instead of using scale, I'm going to drag this outward a little bit. And if you really want, you can grab a few of them, maybe try rotating. Don't go too bonkers because obviously you're going to start to self-intersect, but you can, of course, play about with that. Last step is, again, going to need to add some thickness to this. Go to Thicken. For that, soft edge, 1 millimeter thickness. Sure. All right, let's see if I get any errors there. Finish form. Hot dang, no errors. So you can very quickly start to create some sort of a cloak, adorable little neckerchief, whatever you want. So again, we cannot create actual cloth simulations, but you can get pretty darn close and at least get something within the vein of a plush toy. So play around with it. Again, standard things. If you run into trouble, don't forget that when you're working in here, you can always switch utility mode to rectangle or to box display. You should be able to see pretty clearly where any errors may occur. Other than that, play about with it. see where it gets you, and if you get way too far into trouble, remember you might have to delete some faces and just replace them. Sometimes that's the easiest way to go about it. Okay, enjoy.